This is A Course in Miracles, Section 4, The Escape from Darkness. The escape from darkness involves 2 stages. First, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This step usually entails fear. Second, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. This step brings escape from fear. When you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. Holiness can never be really hidden in darkness, but you can deceive yourself about it. This deception makes you fearful because you realize in your heart it is a deception, and you exert enormous efforts to establish its reality. The miracle sets reality where it belongs. Reality belongs only to spirit, and the miracle acknowledges only truth. It thus dispels illusions about yourself and puts you in communion with yourself and God. The miracle joins in the atonement by placing the mind in the service of the Holy Spirit. This establishes the proper function of the mind and corrects its errors, which are merely lacks of love. Your mind can be possessed by illusions, but spirit is eternally free. If a mind perceives without love, it perceives an empty shell and is unaware of the spirit within. But the atonement restores spirit to its proper place. The mind that serves spirit is invulnerable. Darkness is lack of light, as sin is lack of love. It has no unique properties of its own. It is an example of the scarcity belief from which only error can proceed. Truth is always abundant. Those who perceive and acknowledge that they have everything have no needs of any kind. The purpose of the atonement is to restore everything to you, or rather to restore it to your awareness. You were given everything when you were created, just as everyone was. The emptiness engendered by fear must be replaced by forgiveness. That is what the Bible means by "there is no death," and why I could demonstrate that death does not exist. I came to fulfill the law by reinterpreting it. The law itself, if properly understood, offers only protection. It is those who have not yet changed their minds who brought the hellfire concept into it. I assure you that I will witness for anyone who lets me, and to whatever extent he permits it. Your witnessing demonstrates your belief, and thus strengthens it. Those who witness for me are expressing, through their miracles, that they have abandoned the belief in deprivation in favor of the abundance they have learned belongs to them. The escape from darkness. It's really funny because this topic, the theme of darkness, and the shadow side has been coming in so many directions and so many situations and scenarios or stories that people have been sharing with me. And I've had a lot of resistance to do this next set of videos. And I didn't think to consider what was the next theme and what was my resistance to looking at this. And of course, there's a correlation. Of course, all of the situations and stories that have been shared about, and some of my own thoughts and my experiences have been related to darkness or the shadow side. And so I realize it's just so funny. It's so funny how that works. And I think there's a lot of confusion about darkness, and this really helps to set it straight. So the recognition that darkness cannot hide. And my very first memory of a dream was a nightmare, actually, where the clouds turned into these what felt like evil characters, and I was trying to hide. I was trying to hide. I was trying to escape from these faces in the clouds, because they felt so real. They felt so real in the dream that the impulse was, let me hide from these things. They're going to get me. And looking at this through a different lens, through these words now, it's the recognition that darkness cannot hide. And so it's like, that was my dream. Yeah, I was 5 years old or so. I guess in a way that was my first encounter with my shadow, the shadow side, the darkness, and it was really scary. It was terrifying. I woke up like really confused and scared, and it felt so real. And we often retain those feelings when we wake up from the dream. But there's so many good lessons there, in that in the dream where I was trying to hide, I would go behind the sandbox, I would go behind the tree, in the house, wherever I would go, I knew that they could still see me. And that was so terrifying. And realizing that it can't hide. We can't hide from it. It says that the recognition that darkness cannot hide, this step usually entails fear. So little me in the dream was trying to hide, and I couldn't hide anywhere, and it was just fear. It was fear, 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 fear. I was facing that fear. And that was the fear. The fear itself couldn't hide. All the feelings that I had, all of my projections of the fear to those characters, all of that evil projection, that's me. That was coming from me. And it was scary that it couldn't hide. I think that can be super terrifying if you don't know the way out, which is always going to be a miracle, joining with the Holy Spirit, focusing on the light, bringing light, shining light. There's many ways to dispel fear and many ways to dispel darkness. But the second part here is also so good. Second, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. So, to me, it says this step brings escape from fear. And when you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. I think that it's a big process of being able to bring all the shadows from our mind, from our consciousness, from our experiences to the surface, so that it can be transformed, because that is the escape from it. When we think about our past memories or traumas, and if we still hold on to that fear, it's going to basically have a grip on us for the rest of our lives. But this is an invitation to hide nothing, bring it all up to the surface. Allow all of the pain that you've felt, all of the sadness, all of the emotions that you've suppressed from whatever past experiences, all of that fear, let it come up to the surface, so then it can be seen through a different lens, so it can be transformed. And that line of, when you've become willing to hide nothing. I remember when I was young watching some Oprah show. Whoever the Oprah's guest was talking about his journal and how he writes in a way that he wouldn't care if anyone would see it. And that was so profound to me, because I started journaling when I was very young. And it's an interesting dynamic when you're writing, and you're writing about your own personal stories and experiences and perspectives and perceptions. And I remember when I was really young, I would create code languages, both for myself and with a friend. The little code words that I created, or the ways that I intentionally didn't write the things that I was most ashamed of, just out of fear that someone might take hold of these stories, my experiences, and use it against me. It showed me, it reflected back to me that I had this fear, this wanting to hide from the shadow aspects of myself. And I can say that I still have some things that I don't feel fully ready to just fully share out in the world. And as I say that, I realize that I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to go through that process of actually just exposing everything, all of the fears, all of the shadow sides, all of the things that I'm most afraid of happening. I need to confront it. I need to have it come to the surface so that I can see it differently, so it doesn't hold me in limitation, because we're not here for that. We're not here to be bound by our past experiences. We're not here to be bound by our fears, our shame, the guilt. We're here to just live openly. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book, and I realize that there are certain things that I have left out from my personal stories because of that. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm ready to bring it to the light. And actually, as I'm saying it too, it doesn't mean that I have to write out every single detail of my life story, but more about being willing to not hide from it, and to not hide from the fears and the emotions and all the layers that we suppress. So yeah, it's realizing that holiness can never be really hidden in darkness, but you can deceive yourself about it, and that the miracle sets reality where it belongs. It says here that if a mind perceives without love, it perceives an empty shell and is unaware of the spirit within. And to me, that's really about looking at the projections that we put onto other people. When we see someone and we make whatever judgment of like, oh, they're soulless or heartless, or they're sad, or whatever it is that we're perceiving in others, it's so important to realize that it's coming from our perception and not from just an objective standpoint. We're not objective in the way that our minds are programmed, and the way that this world and universe works it's not objective. We're experiencing it, we're creating it, and all that we're perceiving, we're going to experience in the world in different forms. And so this is so good. The mind that serves spirit is invulnerable. So to me, it's just coming back to, are we going to perceive through the lens with the spirit or not? That's it. And anytime that we're feeling out of peace, or anytime that we're judging anything, anyone, ourselves, we have to ask. We don't have to, but it's useful to ask, are we seeing this with the spirit or not? And if not, then it's just a simple shift in perception to see differently, but it takes that willingness. And again, that's what miracles are. So this line is so good. It says, darkness is lack of light, as sin is lack of love. Simple. It's just lack. It doesn't have substance. And it says it has no unique properties of its own. And it makes me think of, for example, I've worked a lot with plant medicines, including ayahuasca. And sometimes I can see the visions that people have. And also people just tell me about the visions that they have, where they'll see demons and all sorts of like evil things. And to me, it's just the emanation or the symbolic form or the metaphorical form of lack. But sometimes in these experiences, and not even in these experiences, but in this whole life experience in general, people think that those things are real and then try to attack it or try to kill it or try to end it. And that's not the way. It's not going to do anything, actually. The only way is to bring light. So if you have a room that's completely dark, all you need is just the tiniest little flame, the tiniest little light source to bring light to the entire void or the entire darkness, the entire space. It says, your witnessing demonstrates your belief and thus strengthens it. This is basically saying the same thing of what you're witnessing, what you're perceiving is just reflecting what is in your mind. What beliefs are you holding to in your mind? And then letting it be shown through your experiences. And when we see that, we can have the perception or we can have the choice to see differently, to see through the lens and through the eyes of the Spirit. And those who witness for me are expressing through their miracles that they have abandoned the belief in deprivation in favor of the abundance they have learned belongs to them. So if anyone is in fear, if anyone is holding on to any dark thoughts or perceptions, we can choose to see differently. And we can be the light. We can become the light. We are light. So actually just allow the light that you are to shine. Again, even if it's just a little bit, that's all that's needed to dispel the darkness. So thank you so much, and bye for now.